What would you do if you had only $3 in your bank account and 2 hungry children waiting at home? What choices would you make? What lengths would you go to just to put food on the table? This is the story of Sarah Mitchell, and a day that tested every ounce of strength she had left. Sarah sat in her 2008 Honda Civic in the parking lot of the food bank, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. She couldn't bring herself to go inside just yet. Going to the food bank meant admitting that she couldn't provide for her children. It meant acknowledging that she'd failed as a mother. It meant facing the reality that she was completely, utterly, irrevocably broken. She'd been staring at her bank account balance on her phone for the past 5 minutes, hoping that somehow the numbers would change. That somehow, miraculously, money would appear in her account. But no, the balance remained the same. $3.27. That was it. That was all the money standing between her family and absolute destitution. $3. Sarah was 28 years old, but she looked at least 10 years older. Life had worn her down. 2 jobs, no sleep, constant stress, and the crushing weight of responsibility had etched deep lines into her face. Her dark hair, which used to be her pride, now hung limp and unwashed. Her hands were rough and calloused from years of cleaning other people's homes and working the night shift at a convenience store. She'd lost so much weight that her clothes hung off her frame like they belonged to someone else. She had 2 beautiful children waiting at home, Marcus, who was 7 years old, and little Emma, who was only 4. They were with her mother right now, who had agreed to watch them for a few hours while Sarah figured out what to do about dinner. Marcus had been asking her all week when they could have chicken again. Emma just wanted apple juice. Such small, simple requests. Requests that a normal mother should be able to fulfill without thinking twice about it. But Sarah wasn't a normal mother. Sarah was a mother living on the edge of catastrophe, barely managing to hold it together. It had all started when her husband left 3 years ago. He'd walked out one morning, said he needed some space, and never came back. At first, Sarah thought he'd return. She thought he'd come to his senses and realize what he was losing. But weeks turned into months, and months turned into years. She eventually got the divorce papers served to her at work. He'd moved on to another woman in another state. He sent child support sporadically, when he felt like it, which was almost never. He'd built a new life and completely abandoned the family he'd left behind. Sarah had tried to be strong for her children. She'd gotten 2 jobs to make ends meet. She worked as a house cleaner during the day, waking up at 5 in the morning, and working until 2 in the afternoon, scrubbing other people's toilets and wiping their countertops for minimum wage plus tips. Then she'd pick up the kids from school, spend a few hours with them, get her mother to watch them around 6 in the evening, and head to the convenience store for her night shift, working until midnight or later. It was exhausting. It was soul-crushing. It was unsustainable. But it was the only way she knew how to keep a roof over her children's heads and food in their bellies. Most of the time anyway. For the past few months, things had gotten worse. The family that employed her as a house cleaner had moved out of state for work. She'd lost that income overnight. She'd tried to find another cleaning job, but there were so many other people desperate for work that she couldn't compete. She'd applied for positions that would have paid slightly better, but she didn't have the education or the experience they required. So now she was just working nights at the convenience store. Barely minimum wage. No benefits. No paid time off. No health insurance. Just enough to pay the rent on her tiny 2-bedroom apartment in the roughest part of town, and barely enough to cover utilities and food. The previous week had been catastrophic. Marcus had gotten sick and needed antibiotics. The doctor's visit had cost her $200 out of pocket, even with the community health center discount. The antibiotics were another $50. Then her car had developed a problem with the transmission. The mechanic had told her it would cost $2,000 to fix properly, but that he could jury-rig it for $300 to get her through another month or 2. She'd had to make that choice because without the car, she couldn't get to her job, and if she couldn't get to her job, everything would collapse. $300 for a temporary fix, $50 for antibiotics, $200 for the doctor. $550 gone just like that. Money that was supposed to go toward rent and food and utilities. Money that she didn't have. She'd managed to keep it together for another week by skipping meals herself and stretching the food they had as far as it would go. She'd made rice and beans for dinner 7 nights in a row. She'd watered down the milk to make it last longer. She'd bought the cheapest bread, the cheapest peanut butter, the cheapest everything. But even with all her careful budgeting and sacrifice, she'd run out of money. Yesterday, she'd gone to the grocery store with the $3 she had left, thinking maybe she could pick up some basics. But $3 wouldn't even buy a gallon of milk anymore. It wouldn't buy a pound of ground beef or a bag of apples, or basically anything that could feed a family of 3 for more than one meal. She'd left the store empty-handed and gone home to find her children asking her what was for dinner. She'd made them toast. Just toast. With nothing on it. Marcus had eaten his without complaint, but Emma had cried. Her little girl had cried because she was still hungry and there was nothing more to give her. That night, Sarah had lain in bed and seriously contemplated ending it all. Not just her life, her existence. She thought about how much easier things would be for her children if she wasn't here anymore. They'd go into foster care, sure, but at least they'd be fed. At least they wouldn't have to watch their mother slowly deteriorate. At least they wouldn't have to go to bed hungry. But then she thought about little Emma's face. She thought about Marcus asking her to help him with his homework. She thought about the way they both still came to her for comfort when they were scared or hurt. And she realized that no matter how bad things got, she couldn't leave them. They needed her. And somehow, she had to keep finding a way to be there for them. So this morning, after dropping the kids at school, Sarah had done something she'd been avoiding for months. She'd looked up the address of the local food bank and driven there. She'd sat in her car for an hour, trying to work up the courage to go inside. Trying to accept that this was her life now. That she needed help. That she couldn't do this alone anymore. Finally, she opened the car door and stepped out into the crisp morning air. She was wearing her work clothes from the convenience store. A blue polo shirt with a stain on the sleeve that wouldn't come out no matter how many times she washed it. And a pair of khaki pants that were too big for her now. She pulled her thin jacket tighter around her shoulders and walked toward the food bank entrance. The building was a converted warehouse on the edge of town. There were a few other cars in the parking lot, and Sarah could see people going in and out of the building. Some of them looked like they were in situations similar to hers, exhausted, worn down, struggling. Others looked like volunteers, wearing bright yellow vests with the food bank logo on them. Sarah pushed open the glass door and stepped inside. The air was cool and smelled like cardboard boxes and canned goods. There was a long counter at the front where a middle-aged woman with kind eyes was checking people in. There were boxes and crates of food stacked everywhere. Canned vegetables, canned fruits, boxes of pasta, bags of rice, jars of peanut butter, loaves of bread. So much food. And Sarah felt tears starting to well up in her eyes because she was about to receive charity. She was about to take food that other people had donated because she couldn't provide for her own children. "Hi there, honey," the woman at the counter said with a warm smile. "Is this your first time here?" Sarah nodded, unable to speak. Her throat was too tight. "No worries at all," the woman said. "We're so glad you're here. What's your name?" "Sarah," she whispered. "Sarah Mitchell." "Well, Sarah, I'm going to need you to fill out this form so we can make sure you qualify for our services. It just asks some basic information about your household, your income, that sort of thing. Then we'll get you set up with a nice selection of food to take home. We try to give everyone a good mix of proteins, grains, fruits, and vegetables." Sarah took the clipboard with shaking hands and found a seat. As she filled out the form, she had to check the box that said, "Income below the federal poverty line." She had to write down that she was working 2 jobs and still couldn't feed her children. She had to face the reality of her situation in black and white on a piece of paper. When she finished, she handed the form back to the woman, whose name tag said Dorothy. "Thank you so much for coming in," Dorothy said, looking over the form. "And Sarah, I want you to know that there's no shame in being here. You're doing everything you can for your family, and that's what matters. We're here to help during the hard times. That's what we do." Dorothy's kindness was almost too much to bear. Sarah felt tears spilling down her cheeks. She'd been holding everything together for so long that even a simple act of compassion felt like it might break her completely. Dorothy led her to the selection area where there were volunteers organizing and distributing food. Sarah was given a large box and told to select items from the different stations. At one station, she picked up canned green beans and canned corn. At another, she selected pasta and a jar of pasta sauce. At a third station, there were canned beans, canned chicken, and rice. She picked up what she could carry. By the time she'd filled her box, she had enough food to last her family at least 2 weeks. Maybe more, if she was careful. There was enough for real meals. Not just toast. Real meals with protein and vegetables and grains. Her children wouldn't go hungry. As Sarah was carrying her box toward the exit, she noticed a woman sitting in one of the chairs in the waiting area. The woman was probably in her early 50s, with blonde hair and designer clothes. She looked completely out of place in the food bank. She didn't look poor or struggling. She looked wealthy and put together. But she was sitting there watching people come and go, and her expression was intense, almost like she was studying them. Sarah didn't think much of it. Maybe the woman was a volunteer. Maybe she was a donor visiting to see where her money was going. Sarah didn't really care. She just wanted to get out of there, get home, and figure out how to prepare a decent meal for her children. But as Sarah walked past, the woman suddenly stood up and reached out, gently touching Sarah's arm. "Excuse me," the woman said. "I'm sorry to bother you, but can I talk to you for just a minute?" Sarah stopped and turned to look at the woman. Up close, the woman's eyes were kind but also intense, like she was looking right through Sarah's exterior and seeing something deep inside her. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" Sarah asked. "No, you don't," the woman said. "But I've been sitting here for the past hour, and I've been watching people come through that door. And when you walked in, something about you it caught my attention. Can we sit down for a minute? Please?" Sarah was confused and a little nervous. She didn't know this woman. But something in her tone suggested that this wasn't just casual conversation. There was a weight to it. An importance. They sat down in 2 of the plastic chairs, and the woman introduced herself. "My name is Patricia Winters," she said, "and I want to help you." Sarah's heart began to race. She had no idea what this woman wanted or what she could possibly help with. But as Patricia began to speak, Sarah's entire world was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. Patricia Winters looked directly into Sarah's eyes, and for some reason, Sarah didn't feel the urge to run or be afraid. There was something genuine about this woman. Something that suggested she truly did want to help, not take advantage. "I know this is strange," Patricia began. "A complete stranger approaching you in a food bank. But I have a reason for being here today, and I think fate might have brought us together." Sarah clutched her box of food tighter. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice cautious. "I want to know your story," Patricia said. "I want to know why a woman as young and capable as you are is standing in a food bank at 10 in the morning on a Wednesday. I want to know about those children I saw mentioned on your intake form. 2 kids, ages 7 and 4. And I want to know what your dreams are. What you would do if you didn't have to worry about money." Sarah felt a surge of emotion. Nobody had asked her those questions in a very long time. Nobody had cared about her story or her dreams. Her mother knew she was struggling, but she was too busy with her own problems to really help. Her friends had fallen away over the years because she couldn't afford to go out with them or do the things they did. Her family had mostly written her off as a failure. "Why would you care about any of that?" Sarah asked. "Because I see myself in you," Patricia said. "I wasn't always wealthy, Sarah. I grew up poor. My mother was a single parent, and she worked herself to the bone trying to provide for me and my siblings. I watched her sacrifice everything. I watched her go without so we could have enough. And I swore that when I got older, I would never forget what that felt like. I promised myself that I would help people like her. Like you." Sarah felt tears forming again. She was so tired of crying. She was so tired of feeling hopeless. "Tell me your story," Patricia said gently. "Tell me everything." And Sarah did. She told Patricia about her husband leaving. She told her about working 2 jobs. She told her about Marcus asking for chicken and Emma crying because she was still hungry. She told her about the car breaking down and the medical bills and the impossible choices she had to make every single day. She told her about sitting in her car last night, seriously considering ending her life because she couldn't see a way forward. Patricia listened without interrupting. When Sarah finished, Patricia reached over and took her hand. "Sarah, you are one of the strongest people I have ever met," Patricia said. "Most people would have given up by now. Most people would have let the system take their children and tried to start over. But you haven't. You're still fighting. You're still showing up. That takes a kind of courage that most people don't possess." "Courage doesn't pay the bills," Sarah said bitterly. "Courage doesn't feed my children." "No, it doesn't," Patricia agreed. "But it's the foundation for everything else. And I believe that you deserve help. Real help. Not just a box of food from a charity, but actual life-changing help." Patricia pulled out her business card and handed it to Sarah. It said Patricia Winters, CEO, Winters Consulting Group. Sarah's eyes widened. So, this woman was a CEO. No wonder she looked out of place in the food bank. "What is this?" Sarah asked. "That's my company," Patricia said. "We do business consulting for corporations and small businesses. And I have a proposition for you. I'm going to be very honest with you right now. You might think this is too good to be true. You might think I'm trying to scam you or take advantage of you. But I promise you I'm not. I'm offering you a job." Sarah's heart jumped. "A job? Doing what?" "Starting immediately. I want to hire you as my personal assistant," Patricia said. "It would be a full-time position with a salary of $45,000 a year. That's nearly double what you're making now with your two jobs combined. You'd have health insurance, paid vacation days, and a 401k. You'd work from 9 to 5, which means you'd have mornings and evenings with your children instead of working around the clock." Sarah stared at her in complete shock. She couldn't speak. $45,000? That would change everything. That would mean her children could eat properly. That would mean she could fix her car without having to choose between that and rent. That would mean she could afford a better apartment in a safer neighborhood. That would mean she could actually breathe for the first time in years. "Why?" Sarah whispered. "Why would you do this? You don't know me." "Because I believe in people," Patricia said. "And because I have the means to help, and I think that giving help is one of the greatest privileges in life. You're smart, you're dedicated, you're a hard worker, and most importantly, you have a good heart. Those are the qualities I'm looking for in a personal assistant. The fact that you're struggling right now is just circumstance. It's not a reflection of who you are or what you're capable of." "This has to be some kind of trick," Sarah said. "People don't just walk up to strangers and offer them jobs that change their entire lives." Patricia smiled. "Most people don't, you're right. But I'm not most people. And I have a feeling that you're not most people either. So what do you say? Do you want a chance at a better life?" Sarah thought about her children. She thought about Marcus asking for chicken. She thought about Emma's tears. She thought about the constant fear and stress and exhaustion that had become her normal. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I want to take this chance." Patricia stood up and extended her hand. "Welcome to Winters Consulting Group, Sarah Mitchell. I have a feeling this is going to be the beginning of something wonderful." Over the next few weeks, Sarah's life transformed in ways she could barely comprehend. She gave notice at the convenience store, and the manager was actually relieved because she'd been struggling to do the job properly anyway. She worked her last shift as a house cleaner and said goodbye to the families she'd been cleaning for over the years. Then she started her new job at Winters Consulting Group, located in a beautiful office building in the downtown business district. The office was modern and clean, with floor-to-ceiling windows and state-of-the-art technology. Her desk was positioned right outside Patricia's office, and she could see the city skyline from her chair. At first, Sarah was terrified that she wasn't qualified for the job. She worried that Patricia would realize she'd made a mistake. But Patricia was patient and supportive. She trained Sarah carefully, showing her how to schedule appointments, manage emails, coordinate travel, and handle the various tasks that came up throughout the day. Within a month, Sarah had settled into the role and felt confident in her abilities. But more importantly, Sarah's family life changed dramatically. She picked Marcus up from school every afternoon. She had dinner with her children every evening. She helped Emma with her homework and read bedtime stories. She had time to breathe and think, and actually be present in her children's lives instead of just surviving. With her new salary, Sarah was able to move her family to a better apartment. The new place had 3 bedrooms, hardwood floors, and was in a neighborhood with good schools and parks. She was able to buy her children new clothes and school supplies. She was able to take them out for dinner occasionally, and Marcus finally got his chicken. Emma got her apple juice. They got birthday cakes with their names written on them. They got to be normal children instead of hungry, anxious ones. Sarah also invested in her own future. She used part of her salary to sign up for community college classes in business administration. She studied in the evenings after her children were asleep, determined to build on what Patricia had started for her. 3 months into her new job, Patricia called Sarah into her office. Sarah's heart immediately began to race. Was she about to be fired? Had Patricia realized her mistake? "Close the door," Patricia said, "and have a seat." Sarah did as she was told, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. "I wanted to talk to you about something," Patricia said. "About your performance, actually. You've been an absolutely stellar employee, Sarah. You're organized, you're reliable, and you anticipate my needs before I even realize I have them. You're exactly what I was looking for in an assistant." Sarah relaxed slightly. She wasn't being fired. "But more importantly," Patricia continued, "I've noticed something else about you. You have natural leadership qualities. You have a gift for connecting with people and making them feel valued. And I think you have the potential to move up in this company." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. "I mean that I'd like to create a new position for you," Patricia said. "Director of Community Outreach. We would establish a program to help people in situations similar to yours. We'd partner with food banks, homeless shelters, and other community organizations. You'd be in charge of recruiting, training, and supporting people who are struggling to get back on their feet. We'd help them find employment, develop skills, and rebuild their lives. What do you think?" Sarah felt like she was dreaming. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious," Patricia said. "And with this new position, your salary would increase to $60,000 per year. You'd also have a small budget to work with for the program. You'd be helping people who are in the same desperate situation you were in just a few months ago." Sarah was overwhelmed with emotion. She'd gone from having $3 in her bank account and no hope to having a meaningful career that would allow her to help others. She'd gone from wondering if she should end her life to having a future full of possibilities. "I would be honored," Sarah said. "Thank you so much, Patricia, for everything." "You've earned this," Patricia said. "You took a chance on me when I offered you that first job, even though you didn't know me and didn't trust me. You chose hope over fear. And now you get to help other people make that same choice." As Sarah was leaving Patricia's office, Patricia called out to her one more time. "Sarah, can I ask you something?" "Of course," Sarah said, turning back. "That first day, when I approached you in the food bank, did you ever figure out why I was really there?" Sarah shook her head. "I assumed you were a volunteer or maybe a donor checking in on the program." Patricia smiled, and there was something bittersweet in that smile. "I was there because I volunteer there 2 days a week," she said. "I sit and watch people come through that door, and I look for individuals who remind me of my mother. People who are struggling but still fighting. People who deserve a chance. And when I saw you walk through that door with your box of food and the determination in your eyes despite the exhaustion and the fear, I knew immediately that you were someone special. I knew that you were someone worth helping." "Why didn't you tell me that?" Sarah asked. "Because I needed you to see that your struggle was real and valid," Patricia said. "I needed you to know that I understood what you were going through. If I told you right away that I was wealthy and successful, you might have thought I was just being charitable. But by meeting you in that moment of vulnerability, we had a real connection. We had truth." Sarah understood what Patricia meant. She had needed to be seen in her darkest moment by someone who genuinely cared. That evening, Sarah went home and held her children tight. Marcus had gotten an A on his math test. Emma had made a drawing at school that was hanging on the classroom wall. They were happy. They were safe. They were thriving. Sarah thought about that day at the food bank, about sitting in her car with $3 in her bank account and no hope in her heart. She thought about how close she'd come to giving up. And she thought about how one kind stranger had changed everything. She went to her laptop and started researching the community outreach program she would be directing. She started making notes about how she could help others who were struggling like she had been. She wanted to make Patricia proud. But more importantly, she wanted to give other people what Patricia had given her: hope, dignity, and a second chance. 1 year after that fateful day at the food bank, Sarah stood in front of a room full of people gathered in the community center. She was giving a presentation about the community outreach program she'd developed. Her palms were sweaty, and her heart was racing. Public speaking had never been her strong suit. But this was important. These people needed to hear her story. The room was filled with volunteers, social workers, program participants, and donors. There were also journalists from the local news who had gotten wind of the story. A food bank encounter that turned into a job that turned into a life-changing program. It was the kind of human interest story that people connected with. Sarah looked out at the faces in the crowd. She saw a woman she'd personally helped get back on her feet 6 months ago. The woman had been living in her car with 3 children when she'd walked through the doors of the community outreach program. Now she was working as a dental assistant and had just gotten her own apartment. She gave Sarah a thumbs up and a smile. She saw a man who'd been homeless for 5 years before the program found him employment at a local construction company. He was clean and sober, and his daughter had come to live with him after years in foster care. They were rebuilding their relationship, one day at a time. She saw Patricia Winters sitting in the front row, beaming with pride. Patricia had believed in her from the very beginning, and now that belief was creating a ripple effect of hope throughout the entire community. Sarah took a deep breath and began to speak. "A year ago, I had $3 in my bank account," she said, her voice steady and strong. "I had 2 children at home who were hungry. I had no hope. I had no idea how I was going to survive the next week, let alone build a future for my family. I was barely holding on. I was literally days away from giving up completely." The room was silent. People were listening intently to every word. "Then I came to this food bank," Sarah continued, "and I met Patricia Winters. She was a stranger, a complete stranger. And she took one look at me and decided to change my life. She gave me a job. She gave me dignity. She gave me hope. But more importantly, she gave me the belief that I was worthy of help, that I was capable of more than just survival, that I deserved a future." Sarah paused and looked directly at Patricia, who was now dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "Patricia asked me what I would do if I didn't have to worry about money," Sarah said. "And you know what I realized? I realized that the first thing I wanted to do was help other people who were in the same situation I'd been in. I wanted to give them what she gave me. I wanted to show them that life can change in an instant if you're brave enough to accept help and work hard to build something better." Sarah clicked to the next slide on the presentation, which showed statistics about the community outreach program over the past year. Since we launched this program, we have helped 147 individuals find employment. Those individuals combined earned over $2 million in their first year. We've helped 63 families move out of homelessness and into stable housing. We've partnered with 42 local businesses who've committed to hiring people from our program. And we've served over 300 people total through our various services. The room erupted in applause. "But these aren't just statistics," Sarah said, raising her voice to be heard over the clapping. "These are lives. These are families that went from complete desperation to having hope. These are children who now have full bellies and clean beds. These are people who've been given the chance to rebuild their lives and dream about the future." After the presentation, Sarah was mobbed by people wanting to talk to her. Journalists wanted interviews. Donors wanted to contribute money to expand the program. Volunteers wanted to sign up to help. It was overwhelming, but in the best possible way. Patricia pulled Sarah aside into a quiet corner of the room. "I'm so proud of you," Patricia said, embracing Sarah. "I knew you were special that day at the food bank, but I had no idea just how much you would accomplish. I couldn't have done any of this without you," Sarah said. "You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." "That's true," Patricia said. "But you did the work, Sarah. You showed up every day. You studied hard. You fought for people. You made this program a success. I just gave you the initial opportunity. Well, I want to do more, Sarah said. I want to expand this program to other cities. I want to help more people. I want to create a nationwide network of community outreach programs so that nobody has to face desperation alone. Patricia smiled. Then let's make that happen. I'll help you every step of the way. Over the next 2 years, Sarah and Patricia expanded the community outreach program to 12 cities across the United States. They trained hundreds of volunteers and hired dozens of staff members. They helped thousands of people find employment, housing, and hope. The program received recognition from national organizations and was featured in major media outlets. Sarah went back to school and completed her business degree. She was eventually promoted to Vice President of Community Programs at Winters Consulting Group, overseeing all of the company's charitable initiatives. She was making 6 figures, but more importantly, she was making a difference. On the 3-year anniversary of that first day at the food bank, Sarah took her children to visit the place where everything had changed. She wanted them to understand their story. She wanted them to know where they came from and what their mother had fought for. Marcus was now 10 years old and was doing brilliantly in school. He wanted to be a doctor. Emma was 7 and loved to draw and paint. She wanted to be an artist. Both children were thriving. They were happy and healthy and secure. As they walked through the food bank, Sarah saw the same volunteers who had been there that day 3 years ago. Dorothy, the kind woman who had checked her in, was still working there. When she saw Sarah, she immediately came over and hugged her. "Sarah, oh my goodness, look at you," Dorothy exclaimed. "You've done so well for yourself." "I couldn't have done it without people like you," Sarah said. "You were so kind to me that day. You treated me with dignity even though I was at my lowest point." "That's what we're here for," Dorothy said. "To meet people with compassion and help them see that their situation is temporary, that things can get better." "I've been helping people do exactly that," Sarah said. "Through a program that Patricia Winters and I developed. We've helped thousands of people find jobs and get back on their feet." Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. "That's beautiful, Sarah. That's absolutely beautiful." As Sarah and her children were leaving the food bank, Sarah noticed a young woman sitting in one of the chairs in the waiting area. She looked like she was in her mid-20s. She looked exhausted and defeated. She looked exactly like Sarah had looked 3 years ago. Sarah's heart immediately went out to the woman. She approached her slowly and carefully, not wanting to startle her. "Hi there," Sarah said gently. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I was sitting in that exact chair 3 years ago. I know exactly what you're going through right now." The woman looked up at Sarah with hollow eyes. "Do you?" she asked. "Do you know what it feels like to have completely failed? To have nothing? To have nobody?" "I do," Sarah said, sitting down next to the woman. "I had $3 in my bank account and 2 hungry children. I was working 2 jobs and still couldn't make ends meet. I came to this food bank because I had nowhere else to go. I thought my life was over." The woman's eyes welled up with tears. "What happened?" she asked. "How did you get out?" Sarah smiled. "I met someone," she said. "Someone who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Someone who was willing to take a chance on me. And that person changed everything." Sarah pulled out her business card and handed it to the woman. It said Sarah Mitchell, Vice President of Community Programs, Winters Consulting Group. "I'm that person now," Sarah said. "For people like you. We have a program designed specifically to help people in your situation. We can help you find employment, provide support services, connect you with housing resources, whatever you need. And I want you to know right now that you are not a failure. You are someone with value and worth and potential. You just need someone to believe in you while you rebuild." The woman looked at the card, then looked at Sarah. "Why would you help me?" she asked. "You don't even know me." Sarah thought back to that day 3 years ago when Patricia had asked her the same question. She thought about what Patricia had said about giving help being one of the greatest privileges in life. "Because I can," Sarah said simply. "Because I have the means to help. Because I remember what it felt like to be where you are right now. And because I believe that all of us have a responsibility to. From $3 to a movement that changed thousands of lives." That's Sarah's story. She had nothing. No money. No hope. No way out. But one act of kindness from a stranger named Patricia completely transformed her world. Sarah went from standing in a food bank in desperation to leading a nationwide program that helps thousands of people rebuild their lives. This is the power of believing in someone. This is what happens when we decide to help instead of look away. This is what's possible when we choose compassion over indifference. Sarah didn't just save her own family. She became a beacon of hope for countless others. She took what she'd been given and multiplied it. She paid it forward. And now, people all over the country are experiencing the same life-changing transformation that she experienced. But here's the thing. This story didn't have to have a happy ending. If Patricia hadn't stopped Sarah that day, if Patricia hadn't believed in her, if Patricia had just walked past like everyone else does, Sarah might not be here today. Her children might have grown up without a mother. Thousands of people might never have gotten the help they desperately needed. One person. One act of kindness. That's all it took. This is why stories like this matter. This is why we need to remember that we all have the power to change someone's life. You might be someone's Patricia. You might be the person who believes in someone when they've stopped believing in themselves. You might be the one who changes everything. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of the incredible power of human kindness and second chances, then I need you to do something right now. Subscribe to this channel.